My son Ryan had a very advanced vocabulary and was very mature. But every time we would drop him off at preschool, he would become hysterical. It was like he thought we were never going to see him again.
No parent wants to see their kids screaming and crying and being scared to be left in a classroom. I mean, that's just heartbreaking for anyone who has kids to know that their kid feels unsafe and scared. You don't ever want that.
One day, he came to me with something totally unexpected. When Ryan had just turned 4, he looked up at me and said, "You're the best mommy I've ever had." And I said, "Ryan, I'm the only mommy you've ever had." And he says, "I had another mommy and daddy." And I said, "You did?" And he said, "Yeah, I picked you as my mommy." I said, "How did you pick me as your mommy?" He says, "I followed you." I said, "Where did you follow me?" He says, "I followed your footsteps in the snow." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I was blown away because Ryan had never seen snow. We live in Vegas. However, I am from the East Coast. I'm from Pennsylvania, where we have bad winters. And I have spent plenty of time walking in the snow.
When Margie first told me what he had said and how he had found her going through the snow, that was pretty amazing to me. Little kids have fun making up stories and stuff. Being in preschool with a bunch of other little kids, you never know if he's coming up with stories along with their stories and embellishing what he's already heard and regurgitating the information to us. So at first, it's a little skepticism on my side for sure.
I'd never talked to Ryan about what happens to a person before they're born. I didn't know where this was coming from. I was just starting to notice that there was something different about my son. I just didn't know what it was yet. One day, Ryan and I were out in the backyard. It was starting to turn dark, and Ryan was startled. He was trembling. He started crying. I didn't know why. He started pointing, "Don't you see that, Mommy? Don't you see that?" And I said, "See what?" He says, that light, the glowing light." I said, "No, I don't see it." And he ran in the house. I couldn't see what Ryan was saying, so I didn't understand why he was so upset.
When she first mentioned that Ryan was seeing the glowing lights, I actually, wasn't too sure. Little kids' imaginations, reflections on the wall from toys that light up or, computer screens, anything like that. So I didn't really pay it too much mind.
When he first started seeing them, it was occasional, and then it became more often. He would describe these lights as glowing colors, and they would surround him. They made him very afraid. At first, Ryan only saw the glowing lights outside, and then he started seeing them upstairs, and it made him fearful of being upstairs by himself. Ryan was a very brave kid, and the only other time that I've ever seen him terrified like this is when he was going through the separation anxiety. One day, he came to me with something so unexpected. I always encouraged both my boys to speak with me openly. I just wanted them to know that they could always come to me with whatever they wanted to talk about. But then one day, when Ryan told me that he had another family, I was shocked. When I asked him what happened to his mommy and daddy, he had told me that someone had come into his home and had shot his parents while they were in bed. He told me that his granny and his grandpa, and these are titles that we didn't use, granny was not a title that we used, took care of him. And they lived on a farm in a huge house, and they had 6 dogs, and the little dog used to ride in the back of the pickup truck. Ryan was telling me this story with no emotion. It was all just matter of fact. This is my story. This was my life. Ryan was so young, I couldn't understand where this was coming from. He didn't watch anything on television that was violent. We never exposed him to any violence. There was no one even in the family that ever talked about anything violent. When Ryan told me that his parents were shot in their bed, I said, my goodness, that's a terrible story. I didn't know what else to say. I was speechless. Ryan even had a name for himself. He told me that his name was Ed Johnson. My mouth dropped. I had goosebumps. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It sent chills up my spine. I didn't say anything. I didn't know what to say at that moment. I wondered why Ryan was very just nonchalant, matter of fact about the whole story. Such a violent story. I was amazed by my son's confidence while sharing this information. Ryan had so many details to his story, which made the story all the more real to me. I began to wonder if my son was remembering a past life. I grew up Catholic. I went to church every Sunday, but reincarnation is something that we never talked about. But I was always curious. And because Ryan was so detailed with his information, it just made me all the more curious.
When I heard the story firsthand from Ryan, you kind of get a different feel on what exactly is being brought to you, the intensity of it. You kind of think there's something a little more to this than just a made-up tale. It's kind of tough for a 3- and 4-year-old to come up with detailed stuff. It's an absolute eye-opener when you see your child and hear from your child saying this to you in complete and open honesty, that this is what happened, and this is who he was, and you sit there and you go, huh, okay, there could be a little bit more to this.
My name's Ryan, and I'm in 6th grade. I'm 11, and I live in Las Vegas. It is kind of cool that I've had a past life because, it's 2 lives. Not most people get that, and it's just kind of neat to, figure out who I was.
I felt like Ryan had given me a good amount of information about his past, but I wanted to know more. So I started to do some research. I was able to find 2 stories that matched Ryan's descriptions. The first story, a 16-year-old was confused when her parents didn't get up, so she went into the room and found her parents shot and killed in bed. They were the parents of 7 children, and there was a lot of similarities to Ryan's story, the way the parents were killed, and the fact that the 7 children were sent with their relatives to live on a farm. Another story, the parents of 3 were shot in their bed. The killer let the children live, but unfortunately the children overheard what was happening to their parents. When I share these stories with Ryan, I'm not going to share all the gory details with him. I'm going to give him names, era, places, and see if he has any connection with the stories. First article took place in 1961 in Hartington, Arkansas. A 16-year-old girl who wondered why her parents did not get up and turn off their alarm found them dead in their bed. Well, second article took place in 1939 in Edinburgh, Indiana. At midnight, an intruder had come into the house and killed her mother and father. They were found in bed.
I don't know.
As Ryan has gotten older, his memories of a past life have faded. So there is a possibility that we may never connect, and Ryan will never know who he was in a past life. Does either one of these articles connect more to you? No. Although these stories were very similar to the stories that Ryan was telling me, none of these stories had the name Ed Johnson. I'm very curious to find out who Ryan was in a past life, who he was, what he did, and then I can compare it to his life now. I'm going to continue to research, and even though I may never find the answers of who Ryan was in a past life, I am just so happy that I have an amazing, special son in this life.